Hey guys, what's up? My name is Cameron Penner and welcome to a great new tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make Conway's Game of Life in GameMaker, and that is not the Game of Life that you used to be able to get in the cereal boxes or the board game. This is a completely different kind of Game of Life, and if you've seen it before you'll probably know what this does. So what happens is you have a whole bunch of cells, and depending on how many neighbors they have, they'll either populate or die. And so this is an example of a pulsar, or no, not a pulsar. It's a gun, glider gun. I don't know. I think it's called Gosper's glider gun. Anyways, let's get right to it. Actually, I'll quickly explain the rules while this is going. Pretty much for every time the world iterates to the next step, for each space that is populated, if the cell has no neighbors, it dies. If it has, or one neighbor, it dies. If it has 4 or more neighbors, it dies from overpopulation. And if a cell has 2 or 3 neighbors, it survives. And if a space is empty or unpopulated, if it has 3 neighbors, it will become populated. So if we go ahead and draw ourselves one of these, this guy should get populated for one step in the game. And you see that does happen. And these guys all have 2 guys, so now this will just become static. So let's get straight to it. As you can see, we only have one object, and that is because we're going to do this tutorial using arrays rather than objects for the little guys. So this should be some good array practice for those of you that don't have tons of experience. So this will be a little bit more of an advanced tutorial, just so you know. We are going to save that. But let's move on. First, let's create our object. We can call it control. This does not matter at all what you call it, as long as you don't name it after a script you want to use. But in here, we can go ahead and say rm game. That also doesn't matter. So now what we can do, it's silly that you have to press OK for this to update here. Anyways, let's get right to it. Let's go ahead and make our first event. In here we are going to initialize the game and everything that happens, so we'll just go ahead and say init game. And we are going to say, let's start the game in a paused state, just so we can edit stuff if we like. So we'll set pause to true, and we'll actually just call it pause. We also want to make the world not go like infinitely fast, so we'll say world speed equals 5, and this will be how many ticks it waits in between each world update. So we'll set alarm 0 to world speed. And you can go ahead and change this number to a lower value if you want, as long as it's 1. It can't be any less than 1. So, and 1 will be the fastest the game will go. Or you can just put the update code in the step event, but I wouldn't recommend it. So now what we want to do is initialize our world size. So we're going to say grid W equals 50, and that's going to be grid width. And then we also want to say we also want to initialize our grid height. And just so I don't have to come up with this value on my own, I'm going to make it automatically choose the height of the grid depending on how big our room is. So what we're going to do is we're going to round and then double open brackets. We'll say grid width divided by room width, and then we will times that by room height. There we go, just like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the grid width, which is going to be 50. It's going to divide that. Well, it's going to do exactly this. Pretty much what this is going to do is it's going to take whatever width the cell would be, and then it'll just kind of repeat that down like that. So go ahead and pull that apart with math if you like. Then we want to say cell width And this we're also going to determine by the size of the room, just so we don't have to compute it later on. We'll say this is room width divided by grid width. And then we're going to do the same thing for height. Cell H equals room height divided by grid H. And so cell width and cell height is the size of your cell. So your first cell will start in the corner here and then go to somewhere like that. Next, let's put comments in, shall we? Set world size. We'll say world. Well, this doesn't really need commenting. World speed. Start game paused. And so what we want to do now is initialize the world. This should be commented. And to do that, we pretty much want to make our array all zeros. And so we're going to say for, and we're actually going to want some variables here. Variables, var, xx, and yy. Just go ahead and put those guys there. And then say for xx equals 0, xx is less than grid width, and xx plus plus. And if you didn't know, in GameMaker Studio they added this, which is goodness. I didn't know that until a little while ago. We used to have to say plus equals 1, and that's what that does, in case you're wondering. So now we want to do the same thing across y, just so we can iterate over everything in our world. So we'll just change these to y and then change this to h. So what this is going to do is it's going to go across every cell in our world, except it's going to go this way. But that doesn't really matter. Now what we want to do is say world at xxyy equals 0. And this is just going to initialize our world, just for the goodness. So now that's all we need to initialize our game. Now we are going to we'll do the we'll get to the drawing code next, just so that so we can see what we're doing before we start actually coding the game in. So what we want to do here is say draw the world. So first we're going to grid out if paused. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say if paused, then we're going to draw set color to see gray. Else we want to draw set color, should not be a capital, set color to black. And you can choose your own colors here if you like. Go ahead and switch things up, keep it interesting. But other than that, we want to first draw the grid. So we'll go ahead and do that. We are going to want some variables up here again. So now we want to iterate over x and y again, but we're going to do them individually, because what we're going to do is we're going to draw all our vertical grid lines, and then we're going to draw all our horizontal grid lines. So this for loop will look a little different than the last one. So we want to say from 0 to x is less than or equal to grid width, and then say x plus plus. And so what we want to do here is draw a line xx times cell width 0, and then xx times cell width again, and then we want to say room height. So what this is going to do is draw for each X that we're on, it's going to take that and then it's going to multiply it by the grid width, and then we're going to draw from Y0 to the room height, and it's just going to be a straight line. So we want to copy, actually we don't, we'll just rewrite it for Y. So we'll say, whoops, for Y from 0 to Y is less than or equal to, what is that? That shouldn't be there. Less than or equal to grid H, we want to say Y plus plus. Little OCD, but it's not all bad. So now we want to draw line from 0 to YY times cell height to room width at YY cell height. And what that should do is draw all of our horizontal lines. So that's looking good, and actually we can test this already. Let's go ahead and run our game. And if you have a keen eye, you may notice that it doesn't draw anything at all. And that is because we didn't put anything in the game. But that's not what I was going to point out. If you have a, and we're going to change this just because I'm on a lower resolution for recording right now. But if you have a keener eye yet, you'll notice that I no longer have the Yo-Yo Game splash screen at the beginning, which means I bought it. So why is this not running? Come on. Alright, apparently not only do we not have a Yo-Yo Game splash screen, but we also have no game at all. Alright, we are back. So, yeah, apparently I'm not used to coding in GameMaker anymore, because I keep forgetting I have to double up all these silly little variables. Anyways, so that will cause for a lot of infinite loops, which we don't like. So hopefully that's all of them. Let's go ahead and run the game now. That took me a long time to figure out, by the way, but I got it. So we've got the grids drawing. That's good. Okay, now that we got that stuff fixed, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and draw the cells. So we're going to say draw cells, and then now we're going to want to iterate through everything again. So what you can actually do is go into here and just cheat a little bit. We're going to iterate through our whole world, and then we'll take this code out and we can put in our own. So what we want to do is draw a rectangle. And we want to do that from XX times cell H and YY times cell H. This should be a W here, not an H. And then we want to go to XX plus 1, just put that in brackets, and then multiply it by cell W, and then YY plus 1 times cell H. And what that's going to do is it's going to draw our nice little, oh yeah, and we want to say whether it's draws the outline, so we'll just say false. And so what that's going to do is it's going to draw the cells that are filled. So now let's go ahead and make it so we can fill those cells. Global mouse left button, let's add some code here and just say populate cell. And what we want to do is we want to say the world at mouse X divided by cell width, and mouse Y divided by cell H is going to equal 1. What that's going to do is it's just going to, this should have an underscore, is it's going to check where you click, and then it will divide that and give you the actual value in the array rather than in the world. So that's nice. We'll go ahead and duplicate that, and that is going to do for the right button, and then we're just going to say 0. And now when we run this, you will see that everything is gray, and that is because we did not check if it was populated. So what we want to do first is we just want to say if world xxyy, and we can actually just leave it like that, but because if it gives a 0, that's technically equal to false, and if it gives a 1, that's technically true, but we'll just say if it's equal to 1. And then this will work a little bit better. Okay, there we go. So now we can go ahead and draw things, and we can erase things. So let's get to the fun part, which is pausing the game. I'm kidding, this is not the fun part, but it is very easy. Pause and unpause. Pretty much what you want to do is say pause equals not pause. That's all. It'll just invert it. Now we'll code the game. Okay, so at the beginning here we set this alarm to world speed. We can actually just copy that into our alarm code here. And what this is going to do is make sure everything gets updated every time. So we want to just call this update world. Okay, this is where it's going to get kind of crazy. So we want to say if the game is paused, then we want to exit. And so that'll just make sure our game is not paused, and if it is, then it's going to wait until the next tick to see if the game is unpaused. So here, first thing we want to do is we want to go through our whole world and check what the next iteration should be, and then we're going to copy that back into our old array, because what happens is if we're updating our array as we go, then the next row of cells will be working with incorrect data. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and put some code in here. We want to iterate through all of our cells. So we're going to do this again. We've done this a couple times already. We can go ahead and copy paste from other bits in our code if you like. It's a little bit faster, so that's good. So do your for loop over x and y, grid width, grid height, and then in here what we want to do is we're going to create a bit of code that is going to count how many neighbors each cell has. But we're going to do that in a little bit. So till then, we're just going to pretend like we have that code. We're going to say neighbors equals count neighbors. And then we're going to need to pass it our position and the array as well. So now what we can do is we can start implementing those rules, remember? So we're going to say if world at x, y equals 1, then we're going to run some code, else, which means the cell is not populated, then we are going to run some other code. So here we can say cell populated. Unpopulated. Okay, so in here we want to say if neighbors is equal to, actually we'll do it like this. I did it a little bit different earlier, but we'll do it the same as how I did earlier, just so the download link is the same. So we're gonna first check if it's unpopulated. So we'll just go ahead and go like that. We'll just pretend this bit didn't happen. There we go. Nothing changed. Well, everything changed, but so what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if neighbors equals 3, then we are going to say world at x. Actually, we want to we want to start working in a new array. So, and we're going to initialize this one as we go, so we don't need to pre-initialize it, right? Because we're not doing any comparisons. So we want to say the cell at xxyy equals 1. So hopefully this makes sense. And then we want to say, else, seeing as it's not initialized yet, then we need to make sure we get this in here. Else it equals 0. So for our unpopulated cell, if we have 3 neighbors, we're going to bring it to life because that's the perfect number. And if it has more or less than 3 neighbors, then it's going to stay unpopulated. So now if the cell is populated, then if we have too many neighbors or too few neighbors, it'll die, otherwise it'll stay alive. Okay, so if it has neighbors is less than or equal to 1, if it has 1 or less neighbors, then it's gonna die from loneliness. Die from form. Loneliness. Poor little cell. So we'll say next at xxyy equals 0. Else if neighbors is greater than or equal to 4, right? What's the rule? It is 4. So if we have 4 or more neighbors, then we're gonna die from overpopulation. From overpopulation. Poor guy. So we'll just say that, and then if none of those cases are the case, great grammar, then we're going to say, okay, you can stay alive. And we don't want that there. Okay, so this should work as long as our count neighbors thing works. And I believe that's all the code we need in here for now. We're gonna have to copy the array over yet, but first let's go ahead and make this script here. And we're gonna make it in a script both because it's fun to learn how to make scripts, and also because it's way too much code to slap in here. So we're gonna make the script and call it count neighbors. So we'll just go like this and write down our information. Count neighbors x, y, world. So those are the parameters that you're going to need to pass. You're going to need to give it the position and the array that you're working with. So in there, let me just look at my code from before. Okay. First thing we're going to want to do is initiate some variables. So we're going to want our center x and our center y. That's going to be the position we're checking for. We're also going to want our world. And we're going to go ahead and say cx equals argument 0. That's going to be this first argument here that we get passed. cy equals argument 1, and world equals argument 2. Next thing we want to do is set the bounds for where we want to check. So we'll go ahead and say left equals cx minus 1. We're going to say right equals cx plus 1. We'll say top equals cy minus 1. And we'll say bottom equals cy plus 1. We'll just keep that the same. And now we want to make sure these don't take our array out of bounds, because if we go out of bounds, nasty things happen. So let's avoid that. So set bounds. We'll go ahead and say if left is less than 0, then we want to say left equals 0. We also want to say if right is greater than or yes, we want to say if it's greater than grid width minus 1, then we want to say right equals grid width minus 1, because that is the greatest value it's allowed to be. So we'll go ahead and copy this just to save us some typing, right? And then we want this to be top, and we want this to be bottom, and we also want this to be H. So what this is going to do is if we're checking right at the edge of our world here, then we just want to check around here, and we don't want to actually check on the back side of it, right? So we don't want to go out of bounds. So now we're going to run a quick little for loop, and we're actually going to count the neighbors. So we're going to need some more variables here, so we'll go ahead and declare them. We're going to want some iterators to go over, and we're going to want a count variable. And we're going to start count off at 0. Then we're going to go ahead and for loop through from x, or from left to right. We want to say x is less than or equal to right. And then x plus plus. And then we'll go ahead and open another one for y from top. I'm making the same mistake again. Let's not do that. From top is less than or equal to bottom. And then we just want to go up again. And then in here, this is where we're going to do the actual counting. If world, which is the variable we got passed in, at x, y, equals 1, this is actually going to be a if. If it's 1, then we want to say count plus plus. But we don't want to count the middle cell. So we are also going to check if, we don't need an if. We want to say not, and then we're going to open a thing in here. We're going to say xx equals cx and yy equals cy. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Whoops. So what this is going to do is, and then we want our and here, and we want this to be a double and. So what this is going to do is we're going to say if x is center x and y is center y, and not both of them are true, then and our world is 1, then we count 1. So pretty much what this is doing is it's eliminating that center cell from ended up getting added into the count. So now we can go ahead and return count, and we're done. I think we're done. Are we all done? That seemed quick. It's not going. Oh yeah. Okay, we're not done. I remember. Okay, that's why it seemed quick. We need to copy that new world over onto our other world. So what we're going to do is we are going to do another for loop over everything. So we'll go ahead and copy this out of here. We're doing a lot of these, but hey, we're learning. So then it's good. Alright, so we want to copy new world onto old. And what this is going to do is it's going to iterate through all of our columns and then through each of our cells in our column. And then we are going to just take that out, and we're going to say world at xx yy equals next. at XXYY. And if you remember, next is that other world that that other array that we were making. So that's good. So let's go ahead and run this now. And ta-da! It works! How cool is this? So as you can see, these are some static guys. This is an object. So now we're done. Thanks for watching. Now it's playtime. So there are a couple there. let's make some things. First let's make a toad, they're called. One of these guys is just gonna oscillate, open and close. Nom 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 nom. I imagine you put something in there, right? But then it messes everything up. Oh, this is fun. Okay, let's make a glider. I think that'll do it. So yeah, now this guy will just move around. Let's make another one like this. And I think there's a thing there. Yeah, this will go to the side. How do you like that? Okay, and you can go ahead and Google Conway's Game of Life and it'll give you a whole bunch of new ideas. And yeah, so thanks for watching. I really enjoyed making this tutorial and I hope you guys enjoyed learning from it. We got a bit of practice with arrays and we made a sweet game. So go ahead and slap the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in learning some more GameMaker in the future. I will definitely be doing more, and guess what? So since I bought the professional edition, you know what that means? It's coming. I got my first game working on Android just the other day. It took me a while to get it running, but I did that on my laptop, so I might be able to take you guys through the process of getting all the SDK stuff set up on your computer while I set it up on this computer. But that was a total mess. So that tutorial I can't guarantee you, but there are a lot of good guidelines on the interwebs that can help you through that. Till then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.